"Get used the owner right now," Dad yelled at the country club. "She doesn't belong here." Added, "Remove her immediately." I stood quietly. The manager smiled. "Ma'am, how would you like to handle your family's membership?" Their faces dropped. But let me back up. Because the look on my father's face in that moment, the exact second he realized what he'd done, made every single year of their dismissal worth it. My name is Victoria Hayes, and for 28 years my family treated me like I was invisible. Not because I was a failure. Because I wasn't the right kind of success. My older brother Marcus graduated from Yale Law. Partner at a prestigious firm by 32. My younger sister Olivia married a cardiac surgeon and became a socialite. Country club galas. Charity boards. The works. Me. I went to state school. Studied hospitality management. Service industry, my mother would say with that particular tone that made it sound like a communicable disease. "Victoria's always been simple," she'd explain to her friends at their tennis matches. "Not everyone can be ambitious." My father was worse. He'd introduce Marcus as "my son the attorney," and Olivia as "my daughter married to Dr. Richardson." When it came to me, and this is Victoria. She works in hotels. The pause before hotels always lasted just long enough to be insulting. They weren't entirely wrong about the hotels part. I did work in hotels. I just failed to mention that I owned 12 of them. It started when I was 23, fresh out of college with a hospitality degree everyone mocked. I was working the front desk at a boutique hotel in Charleston when the owner, Margaret Chin, took an interest in me. She was 72, sharp as a tack, and had built a small empire of luxury properties across the Southeast. "You see things," she told me one evening after I'd handled a particularly difficult guest situation. "Most people in this industry just process problems. You solve them before they become problems." Margaret became my mentor. For 3 years she taught me everything. Not just hotel management but real estate acquisition, property development, market analysis, luxury brand positioning. When she was ready to retire, she offered me a partnership opportunity. "I'm selling 3 of my properties," she said. "You can't afford to buy them outright. But I'll hold the note at favorable terms if you can prove you can run them profitably." I took every penny I'd saved. I worked 18-hour days. I lived in a studio apartment and drove a 12-year-old Honda. And 18 months later, I'd not only made the properties profitable, I'd increased their revenue by 43%. Margaret sold me 2 more properties. Then she introduced me to her network. Other boutique hotel owners looking to retire, small luxury properties in need of better management, historic buildings perfect for conversion. By 26 I owned 6 properties. By 28 I had 12, including the Crown Pines Country Club, the most exclusive club in Charleston, where my family had been members for 15 years. They had no idea I'd purchased it 8 months ago. Why would they? We barely spoke. I wasn't invited to family dinners unless it was a major holiday. I wasn't included in the family vacation planning. When my parents threw their 40th anniversary party, I found out about it from a Facebook post. "We thought you'd be working," my mother said when I called to ask why I hadn't received an invitation. "The thing about being underestimated is that it gives you time. Time to build. Time to strategize. Time to watch your family from a comfortable distance while they continued to dismiss you as irrelevant." I wasn't hiding my success. I was simply never asked. My business card said, "Hayes Hospitality Group, Principal Owner." My LinkedIn profile listed all 12 properties. I'd been featured in Charleston Business Monthly and Southeast Hospitality Review. But my family didn't read those publications. They read Town and Country and attended charity events where they could network with important people. They never once thought to Google my name. The Crown Pines Country Club acquisition happened almost by accident. I was having lunch with Margaret at her favorite restaurant when she mentioned that Harold Whitmore, the owner of Crown Pines, was looking to sell. He was 86, his children had no interest in running the club, and he wanted it to go to someone who understood legacy. "It's a complicated property," Margaret warned. "The club has history, prestige, but the financials are a mess. Deferred maintenance. Outdated amenities. The membership is declining because younger families don't see the value." I knew Crown Pines intimately. I'd spent countless afternoons there as a teenager, reading in corners while my family socialized. I'd watched the way they ran operations, or rather didn't run them. The restaurant was overpriced and mediocre. The golf course was beautiful but poorly maintained. The pool facilities hadn't been updated since 1987. I want to look at the numbers, I told Margaret. 3 weeks later, I sat in Harold Whitmore's study while he walked me through 70 years of country club operations. The property was stunning. 150 acres championship golf course, Olympic-sized pool, tennis courts, a historic main building that could be spectacular with proper restoration. The financials were exactly as Margaret described. The club was profitable but barely. Membership was at 60% capacity. Most members were over 60. The waiting list that had once been years long had dwindled to nothing. I built this place into something special, Harold said, his voice tired. But I'm too old to do what needs to be done. It needs someone young. Someone who understands both tradition and innovation. He sold it to me for $8.2 million. Well below market value because he cared more about legacy than maximum profit. I spent the next 8 months quietly transforming Crown Pines. I brought in a chef from one of my Charleston properties who'd trained at Le Bernardin. I renovated the pool facilities with a modern spa. I updated the golf course maintenance program. I created a young professionals membership tier with flexible options. I did it all through my management company, keeping my ownership private. The members knew there was new ownership, new management, new standards. They didn't know who was behind it. That included my family. Marcus had sponsored 3 new members in the past year. Olivia's husband had just joined the golf committee. My mother was vice president of the ladies' auxiliary. My father played golf every Saturday morning with the same foursome he'd had for a decade. They loved Crown Pines. They just didn't love me. The trouble started 3 weeks before Easter. My mother called me on a Tuesday evening. She never called without a reason. "Victoria, we're having Easter brunch at Crown Pines this year," she announced. "No greeting. The whole family will be there. Marcus is bringing his new girlfriend. Olivia and James are bringing the children. It's a significant family event." "That sounds nice," I said carefully. "We've reserved the private dining room. Noon on Easter Sunday. Try to dress appropriately. The club has standards." The implication was clear. I would embarrass them if left to my own devices. "I'll be there," I said. "Good. And Victoria, try not to mention your work situation. Marcus's girlfriend comes from a very prominent family. We don't need to bore her with hotel stories." She hung up before I could respond. I sat in my office, the corner office on the top floor of my newest property, a restored historic building in downtown Charleston, and stared at my phone. My assistant James knocked on the door frame. "Everything okay?" "Family brunch," I said. "At Crown Pines." James had worked with me for 4 years. He knew exactly what Crown Pines meant. His eyebrows shot up. "They still don't know?" "They've never asked." "Are you going to tell them?" I thought about it. 28 years of being dismissed. 28 years of being the least impressive Hayes. 28 years of watching my parents beam with pride over Marcus's trial victories and Olivia's charity work while treating my career like a shameful secret. "No," I said. "I don't think I will." James grinned. "Easter brunch should be interesting." I spent the next 3 weeks preparing for Easter brunch the way I prepared for any major business event, with strategic planning and attention to detail. I coordinated with Daniel Martinez, the Crown Pines general manager I'd hired from a 5-star property in Savannah. Daniel was brilliant, calm, professional, and absolutely unflappable. "Your family has no idea?" he asked when I briefed him on the situation. "None whatsoever. And you want to handle this?" "Carefully," I said. "I'm not trying to humiliate them. But if they create a situation, I want you to be prepared." Daniel nodded slowly. "Understood. I'll make sure the staff knows to loop me in immediately if there's any issue involving your party." I also reached out to Margaret, who'd become not just my mentor but one of my closest friends. "They're going to lose their minds," she said, delighted. "I wish I could be there to see it." "You'll get the full report," I promised. Easter Sunday arrived warm and beautiful. I dressed carefully, a cream silk blouse, tailored navy slacks, understated gold jewelry. Elegant but not flashy. Professional but not formal. My mother would still find something to criticize. I arrived at Crown Pines at 11:45. The property looked spectacular. The gardens were in full spring bloom, the main building gleamed in the sunlight, valets moved efficiently through the parking area. Pride swelled in my chest. This was mine. I'd built this. The hostess greeted me warmly. She knew exactly who I was, though her professionalism kept it subtle. "Miss Hayes, your family's party is in the Magnolia Room. Shall I show you?" "I know the way. Thank you, Claire." I walked through the main dining room, nodding to the Sunday brunch guests. Through the windows I could see the golf course where foursomes were finishing their morning rounds. The restaurant hummed with conversation and the gentle clink of silverware. The Magnolia Room was Crown Pine's most prestigious private dining space. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the 18th hole, crystal chandeliers, seating for 24. My family was already there. Marcus stood near the windows with a tall blonde woman who had to be the new girlfriend. Olivia sat at the table with her husband James and their 2 children. My parents held court at the head of the table, greeting arriving guests. Because of course it wasn't just immediate family. My Aunt Patricia was there, Uncle Richard, my mother's tennis partner Susan and her husband. I hesitated in the doorway. No one had noticed me yet. Then my mother's voice cut through the conversation. "Victoria. You're late." I checked my watch. It was 11:58. "The reservation is for noon. Family should arrive early." She looked me up and down. "Is that what you're wearing?" "Yes. It's very plain." My father glanced up from his conversation. "Victoria. Good. You're here. Come meet Marcus's girlfriend, Stephanie. Stephanie, this is our younger daughter. She works in the service industry." Stephanie extended a perfectly manicured hand. "How nice. What do you do?" Before I could answer, my mother interjected. "She manages hotels. Now shall we all sit? I'm sure everyone is hungry." The meal started normally enough. The server took drink orders. Appetizers were brought out. My mother dominated the conversation, asking Stephanie questions designed to showcase her prestigious background. I sat quietly between Aunt Patricia and Uncle Richard, responding politely when spoken to, otherwise staying silent. It was Olivia who shifted the energy. "Mother, did you see that Crown Pines is under new management?" she said, sipping her mimosa. "The changes are wonderful. The food is so much better." "The new chef is exceptional," my father agreed. "They finally upgraded from that mediocre continental menu." My mother nodded. "The new ownership has excellent taste. Much more sophisticated." "Patricia, did you try the renovated spa facilities?" Aunt Patricia launched into praise for the updated amenities. Everyone had opinions about the improvements. The conversation buzzed with compliments for the mysterious new owner who'd revitalized their beloved club. I took a sip of water and said nothing. Marcus turned to me. "You're in hospitality, Victoria. What do you think of the changes?" All eyes turned to me. "They're well executed," I said carefully. "The property had good bones. It just needed someone who understood how to balance tradition with modernization." "Well, someone certainly knew what they were doing," my mother said. "Apparently the new owner has a portfolio of boutique luxury properties. Very exclusive." "How do you know that?" Olivia asked. "Susan told me. Her husband is friends with Harold Whitmore. He mentioned that the new owner was someone young with an impressive reputation in luxury hospitality." My father snorted. "Probably some tech mogul looking for a tax write-off. That's who buys these properties now. People with too much money and no real understanding of tradition." Something in his tone, the casual dismissal, the assumption that success could only come from the right kind of people, made me set down my fork. "Actually," I said quietly, "the new owner bought Crown Pines because they understood its legacy value. They saw potential beyond just financials." My father waved a hand dismissively. "I'm sure the real estate investment was the primary motivation. These young entrepreneurs don't care about tradition." "Some young entrepreneurs understand tradition perfectly well," I said. Marcus laughed. "Come on, Victoria. You manage hotel front desks. You're not exactly qualified to assess major property acquisitions." The table went silent. I felt it then, that familiar feeling of being diminished, dismissed, erased. 28 years of it compressing into a single moment. I could have let it go. I should have let it go. Instead I said, "I don't manage front desks, Marcus. I own 12 properties across the Southeast, including 3 historic boutique hotels, 4 luxury resorts, 2 conference centers and 3 private clubs. My company generated $47 million in revenue last year. The silence deepened. My mother laughed. A sharp, disbelieving sound. Victoria, that's absurd. Why would you make up something like that? I'm not making it up. You went to state school, my father said flatly. You've worked in hotels for what, 6 years? You expect us to believe you own a $47 million company. I don't expect you to believe anything. I'm telling you a fact. Olivia shook her head. This is embarrassing, Victoria. We have guests. I'm not embarrassed, I said. I'm successful. There's a difference. Marcus leaned forward. Okay, let's say you're telling the truth, which you're not, but let's pretend. Where did you get the capital for 12 properties? That's millions in acquisition costs alone. I started with 1 property, a partnership with my mentor. I proved I could run it profitably. He sold me 2 more. I leveraged those to acquire others. It's called building a business, Marcus. Some of us do it without family money or Yale connections. My father's face was turning red. This is ridiculous. You're a hotel clerk making up fantasies. I'm the principal owner of Hayes Hospitality Group. You can Google it. We've been featured in Charleston Business Monthly, Southeast Hospitality Review, and Luxury Property Management magazine. My mother stood up abruptly. That's enough. I don't know what's gotten into you, but I will not have you disrupt this family event with absurd lies. They're not lies. Then prove it, Marcus challenged. If you're so successful, prove it right now. I pulled out my phone. Pulled up my company website. The homepage featured a photo of me in front of my downtown Charleston property, along with a Forbes profile that had run 6 months ago. 30 under 30, Victoria Hayes builds boutique hospitality empire. I passed the phone to Marcus. He stared at it. Frilled. His face went pale. This is real? Yes. He passed the phone to my father. Then to my mother. It made its way around the table. The silence was deafening. Why didn't you tell us? My mother finally whispered. You never asked. In 28 years, not once did you ask about my work beyond finding ways to diminish it. You assumed. You decided I was a failure because I didn't follow the path you valued. So I built something you couldn't even see. My father slammed his hand on the table. This is unacceptable. You let us think you deliberately misled. I misled no one. I told you I worked in hotels. I do. You chose to interpret that as failure. This is absurd, my father said, his voice rising. You cannot speak to your parents this way. I want to speak to the owner of this establishment immediately. We're being insulted by our own daughter in what's supposed to be a prestigious club. I want to speak to whoever's in charge. Now. I'm calling the manager, my mother announced, already pulling out her phone. This behavior is completely unacceptable. We're members here. We shouldn't have to tolerate. Get us the owner right now, my father yelled toward the door where our server had just entered with entrees. She doesn't belong here. I stood up quietly. My mother turned to me. Sit down, Victoria. You've caused enough disruption. I don't think so. Remove her immediately, my mother demanded. The server looked panicked. I'll get the manager. Do that, my father said coldly. I stayed standing. Come, quiet. 30 seconds later, Daniel Martinez entered the Magnolia room. Impeccably dressed, completely professional, moving with the confident authority of someone who knew exactly how to handle any situation. Good afternoon, he said smoothly. I understand there's a concern? Yes, my father said, standing to his full height. We are longtime members of this club. My daughter, he gestured at me, has created an extremely disruptive scene. We want her removed from the premises. And frankly, we're questioning the standards of this establishment if this is the kind of behavior you allow. Daniel's expression didn't change. I see. And Ms. Hayes has been disruptive how? She's making absurd claims about owning properties, disrupting our family meal with lies and fantasies. It's completely unacceptable. I understand your frustration, Daniel said calmly. He turned to me. Ms. Hayes. Our eyes met. I said nothing. Daniel turned back to my father. Sir, I need to clarify something. Are you requesting that we remove Ms. Victoria Hayes from Crown Pines Country Club? Yes. Immediately. I see. Daniel paused. Then he smiled just slightly. Ma'am, how would you like to handle your family's membership? The room froze. My father's face went from red to white. What did you just say? Daniel's voice remained perfectly professional. I asked Ms. Hayes, Ms. Victoria Hayes, owner of Hayes Hospitality Group and as of 8 months ago, owner of Crown Pines Country Club, how she would like me to handle this situation. The silence was absolute. My mother's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. Marcus sat down heavily. Olivia's face had gone pale. Aunt Patricia dropped her fork. It clattered against her plate. My father just stared at me. You own Crown Pines, I said quietly. Yes. I bought it from Harold Whitmore last July. I've spent the last 8 months renovating it, improving operations, upgrading amenities. Everything you've been praising all morning? I did that. That's impossible, my mother whispered. It's very possible. And very real. Daniel remained standing near the door, waiting for my instructions with perfect professional courtesy. Daniel, I said, my voice steady, please have the membership contracts for Mr. and Mrs. Hayes brought to me. I'd like to review their standing. Immediately, ma'am. He stepped out. My father found his voice. Victoria, surely we can discuss this. This is a misunderstanding. We didn't know. You didn't know because you never asked. For 28 years you never asked. You just assumed. We're family, my mother said desperately. You can't seriously. I can seriously review whether Crown Pines is the right fit for members who create disruptive scenes in private dining rooms, make demands to remove other guests and generally fail to maintain the standards we expect. Marcus leaned forward. Victoria, come on. Dad was just upset. He didn't understand the situation. He understood perfectly. I was embarrassing him. Just like I've apparently been embarrassing all of you for my entire adult life. Daniel returned with a file. The membership contracts, Ms. Hayes. I took them. Didn't open them. Just held them. I need to think about this, I said. About whether Crown Pines remains the right environment for our family. In the meantime, please complete serving our meal. And Daniel, put today's brunch on my personal account. My family's guests are, of course, welcome to enjoy their meal. Of course, ma'am. Will there be anything else? That's all. Thank you. He withdrew. I sat back down. Placed my napkin back in my lap. Picked up my fork. The sea base looks excellent, I said calmly. The chef sourced it locally. Sustainable fishing practices were very important in our vendor selection process. No one moved. No one spoke. I took a bite. It was perfectly prepared. The rest of the brunch was torture, at least for everyone else. I ate my meal calmly. Answered polite questions from Aunt Patricia about property management. Smiled at Olivia's children when they asked about the pool. My parents said nothing. Marcus kept starting sentences and stopping. Stephanie looked like she wanted to disappear into the floor. When dessert was served, my mother finally spoke. Victoria, we should talk. Privately. We're talking now. About your position here. And our membership. I said I need to think about it. But surely you wouldn't actually terminate your membership? I don't know, Mother. Would you have removed me from the premises if you'd had the authority? She had no answer. Coffee was served. The children became restless. Olivia made excuses about nap time and gathered her family to leave. Marcus and Stephanie followed shortly after. That left my parents, Aunt Patricia and Uncle Richard and Susan with her husband. My father cleared his throat. Victoria, I think we all owe you an apology. Do you? We clearly underestimated your achievements. You dismissed them without ever knowing what they were. That's not fair, my mother protested. You never told us. You let us think. I told you I worked in hotels. That's true. I told you I was in hospitality management. Also true. You decided those weren't impressive enough to warrant further questions. You could have corrected us, my father said. Why? So you could find new ways to diminish it? You've spent my entire life treating my choices as inferior to Marcus's law career and Olivia's society marriage. When did I owe you information you never valued enough to ask about? Aunt Patricia stood abruptly. I think Richard and I should go. This seems like a family conversation. They left. So did Susan and her husband. My parents sat across from me in the now empty private dining room. What do you want from us? My mother finally asked. Nothing. That can't be true. It's completely true. I don't want apologies you don't mean. I don't want sudden interest in my life now that you know I'm successful. I don't need your approval or your pride or your acceptance. I built everything I have without any of those things. You're our daughter, my father said. Am I? Because for most of my life I felt more like an embarrassment you had to explain. The silence stretched. Your membership is paid through the end of the year, I said finally. After that you'll need to reapply like any other member. The standards have changed. We're looking for members who value community, respect, and genuine connection to Crown Pines. Not just social status. Victoria. I stood. I have work to do. Thank you for coming to Easter brunch. I hope you enjoyed the meal. I walked out of the Magnolia room with my head high, leaving my parents sitting in stunned silence. Daniel was waiting in the hallway. How are you holding up? Surprisingly well, actually. That was the most professional power move I've ever witnessed. I smiled. Years of practice at staying calm while being insulted. For what it's worth, ma'am, you were magnificent. The next morning I woke up to 17 missed calls and 23 text messages. Marcus, we need to talk. This is ridiculous. Olivia, I can't believe you do this to the family. My mother, your father is beside himself. How could you? I deleted them all without responding. Instead, I went to my office and dove into work. I had a property closing in Savannah next week, renovation plans to review for the Charleston location, and quarterly financials to prepare for my investors. Margaret called around 10. I heard it was quite a show. News travels fast. Small community, successful female entrepreneur drama, country club scandal. Of course it travels fast. How do you feel? I thought about it. Free. Good. That's exactly how you should feel. 2 weeks passed. The calls and texts continued, then tapered off, then stopped entirely. My parents tried to reach me through mutual acquaintances. I politely declined every intermediary. Then 3 weeks after Easter I received a letter. Hand-delivered to my office. My father's handwriting on the envelope. I stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Victoria, I've spent 3 weeks trying to figure out what to say. Your mother and I have discussed this countless times. We've talked to Marcus and Olivia. We've examined our behavior. And I've come to realize something difficult. You were right. We never asked. We assumed. We decided who you were without ever giving you the chance to show us. We took the most reductive interpretation of your career and used it to justify treating you as less than your siblings. I can't apologize enough. But I know apologies aren't what you need from us. You've built something extraordinary without our support, approval, or acknowledgement. You don't need us to validate what you've accomplished. What I can offer is different behavior. We would like, if you're willing, to start over. Not as parents who think they know you, but as people who would like to get to know the daughter we never took the time to understand. We understand if you're not interested. We've earned that. But if you are, your mother and I would like to take you to dinner. Not at Crown Pines. Maybe that restaurant you mentioned once. The one you renovated downtown? We'd like to see what you've built. No expectations. No demands. Just an invitation. Love, Dad. I read it 3 times. Then I picked up my phone and texted my father. Thursday, 7 p.m. Make a reservation for 3 under your name. His response came immediately. Thank you. Thursday evening I arrived at the Ashford, my crown jewel property, a historic building I'd converted into a luxury boutique hotel with a Michelin-recommended restaurant. My parents were already there, looking uncertain and out of place in a way I'd never seen before. We sat, ordered, made awkward small talk. Then my father said, "Tell us about this place. How you acquired it. What the renovation process was like." And for the first time in 28 years they listened. Really listened. My mother asked questions about my design choices. My father wanted to understand the financial structure. They looked at photos of my other properties. They read the Forbes article. They Googled my company and spent 20 minutes scrolling through the website. "I can't believe we missed all of this," my mother said quietly. "You weren't looking." No. We weren't. The dinner lasted 3 hours. It It wasn't perfect. Years of dismissal don't disappear over one meal. But it was a start. As we were leaving, my father paused. Will you consider reinstating our membership at Crown Pines? I thought about it. Reapply in 6 months. Go through the proper channels. If your application meets our standards, we'll consider it. That's fair. I think so. My mother hugged me, awkwardly, unpracticed but genuine. We're proud of you. I know we have no right to say that now, but we are. Thank you. I drove back to my downtown apartment, the penthouse suite in the Ashford that I'd designed myself, and stood on the balcony overlooking Charleston. My phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. How was dinner? I typed back. Different. Maybe good. That's all we can ask for. Growth. I smiled and put my phone away. Below me the city lights sparkled. Somewhere out there were 12 properties carrying my name, my vision, my legacy. I'd built an empire while my family thought I was checking in hotel guests. I'd proved nothing to them. I'd proved everything to myself. And that, ultimately, was all that mattered. The next morning, I had a meeting with a seller in Asheville about a historic mountain resort. The property had good bones, needed vision, could be spectacular in the right hands. I was already sketching renovation plans. After all, I had an empire to build. With or without my family's approval. But maybe, just maybe, with their respect. Finally, he thought. Based on no medical evidence, no expert consultation, no documentation. You thought. And based on that thought, you physically ripped medical equipment from her body. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Marcus was sentenced to 18 months in prison, 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service at a cardiac rehabilitation center, mandatory anger management and addiction counseling, and restitution for all my medical costs. $47,000. But the sentencing wasn't the end. The judge addressed my family directly. Several of them had attended the trial, sitting behind Marcus, glaring at me. I want to address the family members in this courtroom, Judge Reynolds said. I've watched you throughout this trial. I've seen your reactions to the evidence. I've read the text messages and emails that were submitted showing your attempts to pressure Ms. Chin into dropping charges. And I'm appalled. She looked directly at my parents. A young woman spent 9 years managing a life-threatening illness while her family mocked her, dismissed her, and accused her of faking. When her condition was finally validated in the most dramatic way possible, when a leading cardiologist testified to her documented medical reality, some of you still couldn't accept it. Some of you still pressured her to protect her abuser. Mom's face was bright red. Let me be very clear, Judge Reynolds continued. What happened to Emma Chin was medical abuse. It was emotional abuse. And it culminated in physical assault. If any of you continue to harass her, I will not hesitate to issue restraining orders. She owes you nothing, not forgiveness, not reconciliation, nothing. The gavel came down. That was 8 months ago. Marcus served his sentence. My parents haven't spoken to me since the trial. Most of my extended family chose sides. There's not mine. I'm okay with that. Because what they still don't know, what came out only after the trial through my lawyer's civil suit filings, is that this struggling medical transcriptionist they'd mocked for years had actually sold a software company for $18 million. When my lawyer filed the civil suit for emotional distress, she had to disclose my financial status. The number became public record. My mother called me finally when she found out. Emma, why didn't you tell us you had money? Not, are you okay? Not, we're sorry. Just, why didn't you tell us you had money? Because my worth isn't measured in dollars, Mom. It never was. But you couldn't see that. You could only see what you decided I was. A faker, a burden, a liar. So you never looked deeper. She started to cry. We could have been so proud of you. You could have been proud of me for surviving a life-threatening illness with grace and determination. You could have been proud of me for building a career despite my limitations. You could have been proud of me for creating something valuable. But you weren't. You were embarrassed by my medical equipment and annoyed by my limitations. Emma, please, can we start over? No, Mom. We can't. Because you still don't understand what you did wrong. You're not sorry you dismissed my medical condition for 9 years. You're not sorry Marcus assaulted me. You're just sorry you missed out on being connected to someone successful. I hung up. I haven't answered since. But I have built a real family, one that chose me and that I chose back. Dr. Morrison and I have dinner monthly. He's become a mentor and friend. Brittany, Marcus's ex-girlfriend, and I are close now. She works in nursing and we volunteer together at a chronic illness support group. My business partners from the software company, the people who believed in my idea when I was just a sick girl with a dream, are some of my closest friends. And I'm engaged now. To David, who I met at a cardiology support group 2 years ago. He has a congenital heart defect. He understands limitations, understands medications, understands the fear of sudden cardiac events. He also understands success. He's a civil engineer who designs sustainable infrastructure. He's brilliant, kind, and when I told him about my family and the trial, he said, "You survived them. That's proof you can survive anything." We're getting married in 3 months. Dr. Morrison is walking me down the aisle. My family isn't invited. I'm not sad about that anymore. Because I learned something important through all of this. Family isn't about blood. It's about who shows up when you collapse. It's about who believes you. It's about who catches you. Dr. Morrison caught me when I fell that day on the terrace. And he kept catching me, through the trial, through the aftermath, through the rebuilding. That's family. The rest is just biology.